Greetings, and once again, welcome to the Ngoma Zethu podcast, episode 9. Today, we'll be discussing missing in action. Missing in action. Who is missing in action? Um, this phrase is very common for those that have participated in wars, or sometimes just like a slang. Somebody didn't show up for something or like that, they're missing action. But today, it's in the context of the African American, Black, whatever term suits where you are or how you feel about yourself. But it doesn't make it a difference. You're still missing in action. And why are you missing in action? Most of the time, um, we we're still learning about our history. Now, when I say we're still learning about our history, I'm talking about the whole slavery and colonialism. That's what the historians and people that are interested in the subject are still like redigging. Every day they find something about something. But that's not the conversation today. That's not my area. So much of that. Uh, I've never been the one I look at the atrocities that were perpetrated uh, on African people, as just that. They are atrocities perpetrated by barbarians, like just cruel people. And we have to know about them, what happened, and not to give any hint that it's going to be tolerated again. But the missing in action is that most of what you call African um, studies, African history, whether it's at home and abroad, they are sort of tied to that period or to these two periods of enslavement of African people and colonialism after that. I, for one, learned that history back in Africa when I was in school, starting with the Arab slave trade, that happened before the transatlantic slave trade. So we learned about that, and then we moved on into the transatlantic slave trade. Mostly you're dealing with dates, dates, such a date or such a period, and you're talking about places, slave markets, uh, the people that were like in charge of the trade, the countries, etc. But what's always missing is that we have never focused on our history as a people. What do I mean about that? Is that when an African is discussed, he's discussed as some kind of an object that's been thrown around in other people's like rare conversation. You know, he's never the subject, of the story. So it would be great that we can start like we're looking at African history, focusing on the African, his philosophy, the whole idea of the existence of a human being, what they are made up of, other than the physical body, the biological body and the spirit that goes when you die. But the thoughts, the mind, what you believe in as African people, your philosophy, the fundamentals of life, you know, some of it you see it in practice, that every time that African people and indigenous people to the larger extent, whenever they're being uh, dehumanized, they're being like completely brutalized by other people. The African or the indigenous people, they have always walked away without retribution. Now, imagine if the roles were reversed, that the African had brutalized the Arab, or the African had brutalized the European. How just imagine how things would be. Just that's your own imagination. So, what I'm talking about, the philosophy, the fundamentals, like Ubuntu, humanity, a human being. You know, I'm a Bantu, and the Bantu, what Bantu means, it means human being. So that means we were human beings even before the people that claim that we are not human beings arrived. But you can see that we were human beings. We knew that, and an intelligent being, that was able to sustain life for hundreds of thousands of years, before all this what people call civilization, came about. All right. So the fundamentals of life, like to study the African, that how come that the African is able to walk away from such uh, dehumanization, such like humiliation? How come that he does not like go for revenge on those that have done him wrong? That's what should be studied also as part of African history. How did that come about? But it's very important that we talk more about that because we are never part of the story. We kind of part of the story, but it's always in the context of this other group of people that have done something, and then our story becomes completely intertwined, connected. So the African missing in action. The African is always missing when it comes to his own story, when it comes to his own spirituality, when it comes to his own beliefs, what he believes in. Look at how many stories, how many wars the African, the black person within the Caribbean, in America, at home, in Africa, how many wars they have fought on behalf of their oppressor. You're not part of the story, but you found yourself in the story, even though it wasn't even about you. Your story disappears when your story should have taken should have been at the forefront. Look, I don't want to be implicated in this. You have already done so much. You have already caused me so much problems. I don't want to drag me into this again. So that means your story is missing in action. And people say that, oh man, you don't know how I mean you would have reacted if, let's say, you were alive then. I say that's not a good explanation. It starts with thinking about it now. Because if we're talking about it now and our children are listening to this, if something happens in about 10, 20 years, because this is a cycle, this thing's going to happen again. Anybody who's telling you that what happened in 1619 or what happened in 1492 or what happened in like 1884 in Berlin at the Berlin Conference is not going to happen again, they're lying to you. Yeah, they're crooks. They just want every time they want you to forget, and then their kids forget, and then when their kids do it, we didn't know, it was another mistake, and it goes again. So we want to make sure that the African child is focused on his philosophy, his understanding of life. What he doesn't like, he doesn't like. He should never be forced to like things that he doesn't like. And so that requires our historians, the people that really go and dig, they should go back and get more information. Some of it is already available in African villages. Is already available. Those that haven't been contaminated with Christianity and Islam, they still have their own practices. But the problem is that it's never harnessed. It's never like gathered because there's a shame associated with that. You have Africans that have a village today. I have a village today that I can go today. I'm not talking about a city like Johannesburg or Harare or Windhoek or Lusaka or Maputo or Lilongwe. No. Or Lagos or Nairobi. No, I'm talking about a village where I can go where there's a burial site where our people are buried. All right. So meaning that there's still information there that can be harnessed, and the historians should be more focused on that. That now we've talked about all this like barbaric phase that we went through, the whole savagery that we encountered in this in this long journey to where we are right now. There should also be a lot of time spent. Now I may be confusing things, say that no, maybe that's not a study for history. Well, the thing is that those things started way back. Those practices I'm talking about, the African philosophies, the African practices, the African stories, what the Africans were doing before they encountered the Europeans or before they encountered the Arabs. There were things they were doing. What are those things? We don't hear more about them. The only time we just hear about, all of a sudden, there's a ship called the Jesus. Jesus is taking Africans. How come we haven't gone to the village and used our oral tradition and never be lied to? But there's a tendency among like westernized Africans or black people to lie because their master has lied to them that you cannot rely on oral tradition. It's a lie. Those people lie. They never believe those people. Those stories have been passed on, and some of them are very accurate. They're very accurate. And those stories can be harnessed. And they have to be, because not everything that the white man, the Europeans have written is true. They have embellished a lot of things. If you read the history of the Americas, whether it's like Central America, Latin America, and North America, only today people are finding out that this is not true, but it was written. It was written in history. It's in the books, but it's not true. It's a lie. So anytime that you talk about Africans going back and consult their oral tradition, the elders that are still living, all of a sudden, no, that's not dependable. Well, we have already proven that written history that we've been reading today is not even like dependable. It's full of lies. So why not go to our own and dig and compare the stories and find the similar traditions and stories that are very similar, and you can know that no, this is a history of a people. This is their migration. This is their movement within Africa. This is how they kind of communicated. This is how they traded. All these. So there should be more focus on the African as a subject, so that we're never missing in action. And the sad thing about it is that this missing in action, it grows bigger and bigger in everyday life. Besides history, that when there's things African happening outside of Africa, like here in the United States, you find few black people attending those things. You'll be like a well-known artist or intellectual coming from Africa to give a lecture here. Mostly you're going to find the rational white people, what they call them liberals, but I call them like sane white people, because they have time to listen and digest things. And those are the ones that you find. And I've done it. I'm not talking about, these are rumors. I've been touring this country, the United States, since 1987. And I've done all the 50 states, up to Alaska, Hawaii. I've done all that. I know this country better than most Americans do. You should position yourself in a place whereby you get the information that's going to be food for your brain, that's going to stimulate your brain. And most of the information that's going to stimulate the African brain is back in Africa in the villages. Go find out. Let's talk about our history now. Should be in our focus. We have talked about the barbarism that we went through now. We know about that. It's not sexy. It's not interesting. The people that did that, I have contempt for them. I don't care about them. I have no respect for them. But now let's talk about our people. Let's talk about their history, their movement within Africa, the languages, like the Bantu language being the largest cultural language in Africa, that's shared by over 500 million people. Let's talk more about that. Let's talk about that history, find out the movement of African people, what they were doing, the chiefs and all that. Let's not miss in action. This idea of just focusing on even though it's very important, I'm not dismissing it. It's very important that we talk about it. Like I say that this is what happened, the Arab slave trade or the transatlantic slave trade or another slave trade or another tyranny or violence that happened on African people or any other people should never be tolerated by anybody. And anybody, including any politician, who try to dismiss it and just forget, let's just move on. Then the question before him should be, if we're talking about let's forget, we're going to forget everything from that period, including your history. But if they have to choose and pick, he's a crook. Don't trust him, treat him with contempt. Yeah, he's a crook. And so our focus now is the African, the human being, the African. Like I said, Bantu means human being. Let's get to know his history properly in the right context. Because as we know that most people that came to the Americas during the transatlantic slave trade were of Bantu origin. So it's very important that that history also is restudied heavily and spend a lot of time. Do not worry about what other guys, those other people are saying. They're always going to complain because they want to monopolize grievances. They want to have more grievances than the whole universe. That's been proven. Don't worry about that. Just tune it out. Pretend they don't exist. Focus about the African and just study and read more about the African.